We're talking about our wives. Speaking of, how's Carrie?
Well, she's swamped with work. She's in the home office.
Yeah.
Lucky for us, she works for Disney's streaming division. So that division of the whole company that's been bringing in money for the last 5 months. So she's been swamped.
Gosh, yeah.
But she works from home instead of having to go into the office and puts in a lot of hours. But other than that, and that's like a thoroughbred running. You know, she's made for it. So she's
Earl, my wife works from home as well, and some people are made for that. They can just focus, and it doesn't matter what's around. They just put their nose down and go to work, and I can't do that.
Well, there's too many distractions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I'm notorious for hunting moles around my property. And so, if I'm walking around and I see a new molehill, well, hell, I'm spending 2 hours investigating that thing before I finish what I was doing.
Standing over the mole hole with a 22.
Hell yeah. I've done that.
My grandma used to do that. God, it was so funny. Daddy was out in the backyard with a 22 pistol hunting moles.
Dude, okay, so I have a really, really funny story really quick. So our next door neighbor, he has twins, and they're 3 years old. And they're a boy and girl, and the little girl, her name is Lyric. And she is the sweetest thing in the whole world. So funny. And so I'm out there, and I think I'm watering or something. But she comes out, she goes, "Hi, Mr. Josh." And I say, "Hey, Lick, how are you doing?" And she goes, "Good." "Hey, Mr. Josh, you hunting moles?" Because that's all I am doing when they see me out there. So, yeah, I get distracted very easily.
Yeah. Well,
I want to take a 22 too, but the Burbank police, they really frown on that.
Yeah.
My neighbor's got a big citrus tree, so it's a draw for fucking rats. Yeah. And at night, I see him going down the goddamn fence. Yeah. I put out the trap. I saw a motherfucker run across it. Didn't get caught in it. The sticky trap. So yeah, there's some nefarious fucking rats in California.
4 legs and 2.
Hey, I stabbed one about a year ago. I got one with my little homemade. I took a gardening stake, and put it at the end of a painting pole, and it snuck up behind me. I stabbed that motherfucker.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. That's primal, man.
Yeah. It comes back every now and again, but yeah.
Golly. All right. Well,
I have a 22, and there's been a couple times where I've seen him sitting there like, "You motherfucker! If this wasn't Burbank, you motherfucker, I'd drop you off that fucking." You just sit there and stare at me. Just sit there and stare.
Hey, you know what you could do? You could order you some rat shot for your 22. It's kind of loud. It's not too loud.
Burbank police response is under a minute. They don't fuck around here.
Okay, don't do that. Don't. I've been to your house, your neighborhood. It's lovely. Don't shoot anything there. You're good. Well, so okay. On the note of killing rodents, be them rats or moles, for Mr. Josh, I think that was a perfect intro for this episode of A Couple In with Cody Jinks. I am Cody Jinks, coming to you remotely from my office just north of Fort Worth, Texas. We got Josh Thompson coming to you from Boyd, Texas. Hi, Josh.
Hey.
And we have Bobby Keith Kilgore coming to you from just outside of Waco, Texas. Hi, Bobby Keith.
Hey, how are y'all doing, man? I'm excited about this one.
This is going to be fun. I'm about to wind Earl up and just let him go, because he's hands down one of the funnest storytellers I have ever witnessed in person. We got Seth Noseworthy turning the knobs outside of Nashville, Tennessee. But I've so been looking forward to this. Today, our very special guest is Mr. W. Earl Brown, coming to you from Burbank, California. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing all right. A little hot today, but other than that, I'm doing great.
It's a little hot. What do you got out there right now?
Got it. Over 100. I'm not sure what. Today we had a heat wave come in. And of course, the fires are all starting. So that's another of the glories of living in Southern California.
God, I know. Dude, it has been absolutely miserable hot here. Yesterday, I went out. I was just going to do some work at one of my stock tanks. And I lasted about 45 minutes. I was like, dude, it's so stupid hot out here, man.
It smells hot.
It smells hot. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the worst. All right, Earl, I'm going to beat you up with some stuff that, is obvious that you probably have talked about in a million interviews and whatnot. But for our guests that are listening, Earl Brown, and I know this because I have seen you do this. And Ward Davis, who is a mutual friend of ours, he told me about you before we met. Now, Ward, we went and did the Conan O'Brien show a few years ago. And Ward was on the road with us at the time. And he played piano on the Conan show with us. We did I'm Not the Devil, which is a song that we wrote together. After that, because that's an early morning thing, everybody knows late night shows are shot during the day. After that, we went to your house. And he said, I have this friend, Earl, and, Deadwood, and something about Mary. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly who he is. Yeah. He said, okay, yeah, we're going to go over there. He said, you have to listen to this motherfucker tell a story, but don't just listen to him, watch him. He said, Ward, so Ward goes, Cody, I'm not shitting you, dude. He starts the story telling the story about this person, and by the time he's done, he is that person. And I've seen it happen, and we'll get into this too after we get through some of the more boring stuff. But the story you told about Steve Earle giving you that J100, you started the story as Earl, and you finished the story, you were Steve Earle, and it was the coolest thing ever. I love that about you. I admire that craft, that trait. And for those of you who don't know, Earl is probably most known as Dan from Deadwood, but just the movies that you've been in, I can't name them on all my fingers and toes. How did you get?
I hope not, because I've done 140 some. You'd be a weird some bitch if you had a finger for every one I've been.
How did you get into it, Earl? What's your story, man?
I grew up in Kentucky in a blue collar family. My mother's side were all farmers and carpenters, and I just knew as 12 years old hauling hay. Man, I sneezing my head off, and I was always a big kid, so I was having to load goddamn hay bales. And I remember sneezing my head off thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do in my life, but this can't be it. I love music and I love movies, and it just seemed like an impossibility where I was from and my background. And then I was the first in my family to go to college. We had a very successful speech and debate team in high school. I had this one teacher, this speech coach, who really drilled into us. He said, nothing is impossible in your life. Nothing is impossible. As long as you are willing to put in the work and focus, anything can happen. So that was kind of planted. Still never dreamt that I could do this. So I go to college. I went to Murray State, which was, I grew up outside of Murray, about 12 miles outside of town. First in my family to go to college, took an acting class on a whim. It was like a fish to water. Started doing plays and got bit by the bug. To make a very long story short, I ended up going to grad school in Chicago, and started doing theater and then movies there in Chicago. And then one thing led to the other. I hit the glass ceiling, moved out to California in 93, and I've been here ever since. I did Scream, was the first big thing that I had a significant role in. That was in 96. And then 2 years later was Something About Mary, which I played Warren in. And for me, my freshman year of school, right after Kiss Alive had come out, Kiss Alive came out 3 days after I turned 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was the first part of pop culture that just like blew my mind. Like, oh my God, this, I want this. And then Animal House, Halloween, Star Wars all came out around my freshman year of high school. That's where I fell in love with movies. If I had a choice of being a rock star or being in movies, I would have chosen rock star, but I couldn't play guitar for shit. Not that I can play guitar all that well now, but,
you're a fun, dude, you play guitar better than I do.
I don't know about that, but
no, you should be a great guitar player.
Well, I signed up for Fender Play, by God, and I've been going through this. I'm getting better.
You're getting better.
Yeah, so that's how I started. But it was so cool, like in the 90s of having, because Animal House and that generation. Well, here's an example. I was doing Preacher, the show on cable with that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg created. Mm-hmm. And Seth and Evan were directing the pilot. And that was those kids, they met when they were 12 years old in bar mitzvah class, and they bonded over that comic book. So here they are all these years later getting to make it as a TV series. Mm-hmm. Well, I told them the story that, when I was a kid, man, when I was 12, 13 years old, it was Animal House, Star Wars, Halloween. And Seth goes, yeah, man, Something About Mary was like that for us.
And now you're that guy.
Hey, a great honor, but
absolutely,
he's my fucking boss. So, I think I lacked a certain amount of initiative.
But what a cool compliment, though. I mean, that's
yeah. No, I took it, but I got a funny one to tell on you.
On me?
Yeah, this is going back to Ward. I know.
Okay, well, don't believe anything that assholes. Fuck him.
No, I saw it first, Ash, so I know he was telling the truth.
All right.
I met him when we were doing Deadwood. I had the radio on, or we had the satellite in the trailers, and I had on. God, it was some cable music channel, but they played this song. And I'm like, God damn, that sounds like Waylon. Got that Waylon halftime beats. Got that. Phase shifted Telecaster, and it was Ray Scott. Mm-hmm. It was my kind of music. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, holy shit, Nashville put out somebody that sounds like this? Well, I was, because Murray's not far from Nashville, so I'd fly back to Nashville often. Well, I saw Ray was going to be they were playing at the Grand Ole Opry outside on the plaza. And I think somebody may have mutually introduced us. I knew Cowboy Jack Clement at that point. But anyway, Ward was playing keyboards. That's where I met Ward. Ward has slept on my couch more than once, back in the day. Too. But so he's out with you. He's out with you, and he called me and said, we're doing Conan, and we're going to stay at that hotel down from your house, man. We ought to hang out. I said, yeah, man, let me make some phone calls, and we'll try to get a picking party together.
Yeah.
So I call up Jerry Cantrell, and I called up Cody, knowing both of them love country music. And I said, hey, man, I got some buddies coming in. And Cody, he was a metalhead, so he's going to have, versed in that. So I tell Ward. Now, Ward had met Jerry. He went to a poker game with me once at Jerry's house. But he didn't know, because his daddy wouldn't allow him to listen to rock music growing up. Right. So, hell, he barely knew Bob Dylan. So he certainly didn't know metal. So I told him, I said, yes, Jerry's coming, and I got my buddy and this, that, and the other. Well, he calls me back up about a day later, and he goes, who's that fella that's coming over? Not Jerry. Who's that other fella that's coming over to play guitar? I said, Scott Ian. What's the name of his band? I said, Anthrax. Look, you ain't met Cody yet, but Cody is like the coolest motherfucker on the planet. Nothing phases him. It's like water off his back. Nothing impresses him. I told him that guy was going to come over and play country music. He's beside himself because that's his favorite band in the world.
I was scared to death, dude. And actually I was going to get into that story, and I'm glad that you brought it up. That was one of the coolest probably days of my life. and for a lot of different reasons. That was our first late night show. We did the Conan show that day. We were invited to a dinner party at your house, a little picking party. We had Mexican food. Jerry couldn't show up, but
come up.
But Pearl and Scott showed up, and the relationships that I've gotten out of just that meeting at your place have gone. Pearl and I are working on a song right now. Mm-hmm. Pearl and I, because obviously Scott was one of my heroes, and one of the reasons being is because I am a rhythm guy. I am not a lead guy. I cannot play lead. It doesn't make sense in my head. But I held Scott there where I held Malcolm Young.
Yep.
Just the riff meisters, the guys that just lay down that fat rhythm. And so
like
meeting
a metronome with feel and energy, man.
It is.
Yep.
Yes. Just tight. And that was, so that was literally, I met one of my heroes at your home, that night.
And you were on national television the first time.
Absolutely. So for a lot of different, but that day I got to meet you, and I got to meet your wonderfully awesome wife, Carrie, who is just the sweetest lady ever. You guys came to see us play a show after that because we were out there. Anyway, what just a wonderful day that was. But and becoming friends with Pearl and Scott. We went to Disneyland with Pearl and Scott in January. I went out to LA to do Dime Bash this year. A benefit,
Oh, I know.
I'm
years, but I go off. I've been to 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, and got to play with Pearl and Scott there. And since having met, because of you, Pearl has done how many tours with us, Josh? 3 or 4?
Oh, at least 4 that I know of.
At least 4 tours we've done with Pearl, and like I said, so yeah. But the one thing that I absolutely love about you specifically is, and Ward told me this as well, he likes bringing like-minded people together to just be together and be creative and talk shop and play guitars or sing or do whatever that is. You bring people together. That's a wonderful quality. That's one of my favorite things about you.
Well, I feed off of it. That kind of energy when people meet and there's a spark in the room. There was definitely a spark in the room that night. And I can think of the greatest times that I've had in my life. Luckily, there have been many of them, but it's always an environment like that when people that I admire and draw from meet and a spark happens between them, as it obviously did with you and Pearl. Well, it did. Hell, I remember when Ward was going down there to meet you. I talked to him only like a week or so before that. When he told me, I'm going down to Texas, going down to Dallas. You ever heard of Cody Jinks? So, and then y'all created a big hit.
We tried.
Yeah. But no, I enjoy that. And I creatively, that feeds what I do. So, and, when something lights a spark in me, I don't care if it's, trying to tell a story with a guitar or with a movie camera. I become obsessive about it, but it's those instances like happened here in my living room. That's where those seeds are planted. So no, I live for that. That's my church, man.
Me too.
Cody brought it up earlier about you being a storyteller, but that's really what it is about. No matter what the art is, it's telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny this goes back to that Steve Earle story. When I met him, that was my favorite. I grew up with hard rock and metal, and my mom used to take me to concerts. My first concert was Porter Wagner show with Dolly Parton and Spec Rhodes, 1967. I was 4 years old. Every country or gospel act that existed in the late 60s, early mid 70s, I saw them. And then puberty hit, and I got Kiss Alive, and then suddenly I just wanted hard rock and metal and punk, and that's all I listened to. And then when I moved to Chicago from Kentucky, I was a proverbial country boy in the city. Didn't know anybody, intimidated as hell by living in the city. And WXRT was the cool rock station. And they used to play Steve Earle. And I remember the first time I heard Copperhead Road, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'm like, holy shit. And I was just learning to play. Like, seriously, with my Mel Bay book, go home at night, sit there and learn my open chords. Hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is country music. Like, this is a country story, and it's got a country feel, but man, this is metal too. This is
absolutely.
So that I became a rabid fan. And then he and I met at the airport. Carrie, my wife and daughter were on an airplane with him. And he was flying out here, and we were standing at LAX baggage. I saw him get off the plane. This is in the day before 9/11. So I met them at the gate, and I saw him get off the plane. I'm like, so minutes later, we're at baggage claim. He literally comes and is standing next to me. He's on the cell phone, and he hangs up. And I said, hey, man, I know heroes are best kept at arm's length, but I have to say hello to you. Stick my hand out. He shakes my hand. He goes, hey, man, I'm Steve. And I went, yeah, and I'm Earl. And he goes, and I said, oh, and this is my wife, Carrie Brown, because he has a song, Carrie Brown. He said, I thought I made that up. It just sounded like a pretty hillbilly girl's name to me. And I went, well, it is. So we just struck up a friendship. And then he was out here to open he did a tour with Tom Petty. And he called me up. This is about a month later. And we went to dinner, and then I went to rehearsal, and we just remained friends ever since. But the J100, we were at his house, and he had given me the guitar. This was after the guitar and whatnot. And he was talking about, I'm a talker, but Steve leaves me in the dust. But out of the blue, he goes, you know what I fucking hate? I fucking hate a goddamn actor with a guitar around his neck. How big does your goddamn ego have to be? The silver screen can't fucking hold it? No, you got to get a guitar, get behind a goddamn microphone. Well, I'm just, now, at that point, I hadn't created, I play in a band called Sacred Cowboys. Sacred Cowboys weren't a real band at that point, but he knew that I played and I sang. So he's on his diatribe about guitars. And I swear to God, not a minute later, he goes, yeah, David Simon called me about shooting on season 2 of The Wire. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to get to Baltimore to shoot with this touring schedule, man. You're trying to do 3 episodes. And he caught himself, and his ears got red. And for the only time in my life, I've seen Steve Earle at a loss for words. And it was like silence. And I said, it's the same thing, Steve. He goes, look, man, the only reason that I do this shit, I'm in recovery, and a lot of people look up to me because I'm playing a recovering addict on the show. I said, you don't have to apologize for being on the show.
For wanting to.
I said, if the impulse to tell that story is genuine, it comes from the same place. Whether it expresses itself with your 6-string or whether it expresses itself, being put on film, the impulse to share that and connect comes from the same place. Now, different skills involved, different techniques involved, but if it's genuine, it's the same. So he finally gave over to that. Now he's quite comfortable with acting. You know the Deadwood story about the horse? Did I tell you? Well, it's worth sharing.
Well, I would like to hear that. I do want to get into another Deadwood story about an eye.
Yeah.
But let's do the horse first.
Okay. Well, so I was doing his play in Nashville, first play that he had written, when I was offered the Deadwood pilot. And long story, but we ended up, it worked out. I was able to do both. So I was flying back and forth between here and Nashville to do it. And when I got the final drop dead offer, like, you have to be here on these dates or they're moving on, he was in the room with me and he could hear it on my cell phone. And I hung up and he has this dire look on his face. And I said, look, I told you 2 years ago that I was doing this play. I'm doing this play. And he said, yeah, but I'm going to feel like shit if I cost you a TV show. And I said, well, so anyway, we worked it out. So a year later, he's a Deadwood freak. He loves the show. And he and David Milch, the show creator and writer, are a lot alike. They're genius minds that were heroin junkies for many, many years. And I knew they would either instantly connect or repel each other. Now, HBO had wanted a theme song for Deadwood, and he was on their short list to write it. So Milch came to me, and he said, I understand that you know this Steve Earl songwriter. Yeah. He goes, let me hear some music. So I gave him some CDs. Well, Milch couldn't stand the turn loose of any words that he didn't control, even though Steve said I'd be willing to work with him. But so a year later, Steve's out here. I called David and I said, let's all have breakfast. So I knew those two would either instantly repel one another or be best friends. So within 5 minutes, they're sharing junkie stories, you know, and with every junkie that I know, everybody that's recovered, there's an equal part pride and equal part shame, because there's a shame in the degradation that they let their lives fall to the gutter, you know, and a shame in hurting those people that love them. There's also a pride of having survived it.
Absolutely.
And those two instantly bonded. So we leave. And well, toward the end of it, Milch says, you've done some acting, right? He goes, yeah, you know, I did some episodes of The Wire. He goes, yeah, would you like to do our show? Well, yeah. So Steve gets all, he gets on to me about, I had been offered a writing gig on the show. And at that point, I was still wavering about it. And he chose me a new one. He goes, look, man, that's a writer's writer. You pass up the opportunity to work with him. It's like when I met Townes Van Zandt when I was 17 years old. I knew that man can teach me, and that man can teach you. So with his prodding, I took a job as a writer on the show, season 2. So I'm working every day on the show. So Milch came to me and he said, I have this character. It's going to be your friend Steve. He's going to be Hooplehead Steve. He's a miner that's been screwed out of his claim by Commissioner Jerry, and he wants revenge. He wants to tar and feather him, but he can't. So he comes out and he finds the general. So he's going to chase Franklin down. He's going to tar and feather. It's going to be funny but creepy. Get his dates, and we're going to work it out. So I call up Steve Earl. So touring schedule, dates of availability. Time passes. It's not going to work. Milch tells me, he says, I'm not ready to approach that part of the story yet. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to cast it. So I called Steve and said, sorry, but. So weeks pass, more weeks, and I get the pages. For whatever reason, I wasn't in the writer's trailer that day. Actually, I think I was at home when they faxed them to me. That's how long ago it was. So I'm reading the pages, like what we're going to be shooting tomorrow. And I call up Steve and I go, hey man, what's up? Oh, we just got the night off. I didn't get a hotel. I'm just hanging on the bus, catching up on movies. What's going on? I said, well, you might be glad that the Deadwood schedule didn't work out. He goes, be glad? Why the fuck would I be glad? I wanted to be on that show. Why would I be glad? I said, because at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, you'd be going to work to fuck a horse. He said, what'd you say? I said, 7 a.m., you'd be showing up to go fuck a horse. Are you shitting me? I said, nope. Bullock has humiliated Hooplehead Steve. Hooplehead Steve is a coward. He can't face Bullock. So for revenge, he goes to the stables and screws his horse.
Wow. They wrote him in as a horse fucker?
Yeah. I said, well, he can't bring himself to stick it in, so he just beats off on its haunch. There's a long pause, and Steve goes, he goes, what kind of impression did I leave at that breakfast? I told people that story. And I said, if you ever meet him, if you encounter him, call him Hooplehead Steve the horse fucker. And he told me, he goes, that happened to me twice, you bastard. He goes, I tell him, yeah, you know Earl Brown. Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, that's awesome. I don't know that we've ever been told a better story than that on this show. That's fantastic. All right.
Oh my goodness.
All right. We'll get into some other stuff later. We'll have some more fun, talk about some different stuff. Now, I want, if you would care to indulge me, there was an episode of Deadwood where Dan had to do just the eye gouge thing.
Yeah.
God, it's and I remember you telling me the story beforehand and seeing the emotion just watching you tell the story.
Well, the story behind it, in season 2, I had actually written a thing. My grandfather, my mom's dad, told me early on, he said, don't ever allow nobody to call you some bitch, because that is defaming your mama. And I had nobody defame my mama. They called me that word. They paid the price. So I grew up with that. And I had written it. And my mother, she was a divorced single mom at 16 years old. And her ex-husband was 27. And he was not paying child support. And my grandfather, my uncle, who was 9 years old at the time, witnessed this. My grandfather saw him in public and said, Loman, we need to talk. He took him around behind the filling station and said, you have a baby. Baby needs clothes. Baby needs food. You might not want to be a daddy, but you're going to pay for it. He turns to walk away, and Loman, trying to save face, goes, yeah, better walk away, yo son bitch. And my grandfather turned, and he was a big man. And he hit Loman so hard, Loman's eyeball popped out of its socket. Loman collapsed to his knees and fell over to his side. And Les starts stomping him. Les was my granddaddy. And my granddaddy, when he would go, his pupils would dilate. His eyes would turn black. And I witnessed it a few times when I was the little boy. And my uncle said, he goes, I saw Daddy's eyes and I knew that he was going to kill him. And he said he picked up a chunk of coal and he straddled his chest and he's about to brain him. And Gerald, 9-year-old, goes up and grabs his daddy by the chest so that he can't kill the guy. So I wrote that for season 2 with Soapy the soap seller from Deadwood, which was based on a real guy, Soapy Smith. And that was his con. So I'd written it that he was pulling the soap seller con in our saloon, and I throw him out, and he calls me a son of a bitch, and that happened. Well, we never used it. So second season rolls around, and David told me, he said, what this is building up to is there's going to be a big fight to the death between you and George Hurst's guy, the captain. It's going to happen in the street. Look like you're going to die, but at the last second, you're going to turn the tables, and you're going to be victorious. So we got together. We had 3 days of rehearsals. Nothing was written. I mean, it just says Dan and the captain meet in the street and fight to the death. So he brought me, Al Graff, who played the captain, Mike Watson, the stunt coordinator, and the director, Dan Minahan, together. He said, all right, you guys have 3 days. I have 3 rules. Number 1, I want it to be completely realistic. I don't want any big cliches. I don't want any cowboys flying through plate glass. None of that shit that we see in every Western. Number 2, I want it, every time it's going to ebb, I want it to escalate. I want the audience not to be able to draw a fucking breath for 5 minutes. And number 3, I want something I ain't ever seen before. So make it up. So we spent our time trying this, that, and the other.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, David would come and watch what we've done. So like Dan Minahan said, we've never used this butcher shop set, this raw meat that we have. I want us to end up at one point in the raw meat. I suggested the drowning in horse piss and mud and the bite. And I said, these got to be like 2 cavemen trying to kill each other. And so at the end of day 2, we didn't have an ending. And Milch comes to me and he goes, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. He goes, I went back to that thing you wrote last year and that son of a bitch story, and that's not going to work. And then my character was based on a real guy who was Benny Binion's enforcer in Vegas. And he used to hold people down and take their eyeballs. And he said that thing went, I won't name the guy, but he said that doesn't work with, what he used to do. I don't know how we're going to end this. So poker game at Cantrell's that night. So I'm at Jerry's house playing poker, and he's big into Deadwood, and that's how we met. I was a big Alice in Chains fan. He was a big Deadwood fan. We met at Pearl Aday's 30th birthday party. So we're playing poker, and he says, yeah, what's going on in Deadwood? What are you guys shooting right now? So I tell him this entire story that I've just told you. And he said, yeah, something like that happened to my brother Dave in a biker bar in Oklahoma. I said, what? He goes, yeah, Dave got in a fight. He said, this guy had him on the pool table. He had him by the ears, and he's cracking his skull. And he said, Dave felt tunnel vision, and he was afraid that if he passed out, they were going to kill him. So he goes, he's completely fucking panicked, and he's trying to push the guy off of him, and he felt his ring finger hit something soft and squishy, and he thought, oh, that's an eyeball. And he jammed his ring finger into the guy's skull and pulled his eye out. So I go to work the next day, and I went, David, I got an ending.
I'm going to pull his fucking eye out.
So Dave says, that's great. Ward or makeup, can we do an eyeball? Yeah, we can. All right, well, so we get around to that. So we had 2 days to shoot it. So it's 3 days to create, 2 days to shoot. We're shooting there. Al Graff is getting the eyeball put on. And he said, how would I respond? Like, what would happen? I said, well, I bet you, like, the eye that's in the socket would be flooded with blood because all the blood vessels would pop. So if you could see if the nerve is still there, the eyeball that's dangling could probably still see your feet. Well, I see the enforcer, the real guy. He was on set that day. And I see him down the way. And I went, I'll get an answer. So I just go jogging down, and I went, hey, I got a question. Yeah, what is it? I said, I know about your background stuff in Vegas. What happens when somebody loses their eyeball? He looks up at the sky. There's a long silence, and he goes, they scream. They scream a lot. And I felt this chill down my spine of like, oh shit, I'm talking to a real bad guy.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a pretend bad guy. I'm talking to a guy that's taking people's eyeballs out and has probably dug holes in the desert. And so I go back down to Al Graff. Now, Al Graff had played in the NFL, and he's a tough dude. The guy that was playing the captain. He goes, well, what did he say? And I go, you scream a lot. You scream a lot.
That was it. That's the whole, that whole story. And I've heard you tell that story before. They scream a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, that just chills.
Yeah.
It's
and
awful.
Don't forget that breath between them. They scream. Because he was an old man at that point. I mean, he was well into his 70s and had gone through cancer. And he was like 6'7". He was a mountain. He was an old rodeo cowboy. And even the other rodeo cowboys were afraid of him. I heard stories about stuff that he pulled out on the circuit, with beating up people and beating up the wife of a judge that gave him a low score. He beat the shit out of the judge. And then that night he was out at a bar, and the judge, the guy that gave him the low score was in the hospital. The guy's wife was at the bar, confronted him about beating up her husband, and he beat the shit out of her in public. Oh.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say that was the right thing to do, but if your husband's in the hospital, why the hell are you at a bar?
That was my first thought. When I was told that story, that was my first thought. And I asked Hawkeye Henson. Hawkeye goes, well, it's rodeo. God damn it, it's rodeo. What do you expect?
It's rodeo. Yeah. Rodeo people are fucking nuts. It's just, that's a whole different breed of people. God, I love your stories, man.
Earl, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about two movies that one is Backdraft. Me and Cody, every time we see that on TV and when we're touring or whatever, we watch it. Like, no matter what part it's at, we watch it. And
that's a tour bus mainstay is Backdraft, yeah.
Yeah, that one and Rookie of the Year. I remember Thomas Ian Nichols walking in saying, oh, my God, that's Billy Frick. And turns out it was you.
Yeah. That was movie number 1 and 3, I think.
Wow.
Backdraft was, God, in the panned and scanned version, I even got cut out. I wasn't even in the union yet. I got hired to, the long story, long audition process, but I finally met Ron Howard. And Ron, he didn't know, there's a character at the beginning of the film, a local bartender. He didn't know if he was going to be somebody Billy Baldwin's age or somebody that was like Billy's dad's age. But it's a local neighborhood bar. And he said, we're looking for a very distinct Chicago dialect. So from the time I walk in a door, I put on this really hard Southsider dialect. And we do the whole audition. And Ron says, well, obviously you're from here. And I said, well, no, I'm not. I'm from Kentucky. So I got hired to coach dialect. He cast the older actor in that role. So I'm coaching dialect on the movie. And I knew they were all big basketball nuts, Ron and all the producers. So I used to play in a twice weekly game at DePaul, where I had gone to grad school. And I knew the athletic director there. So I called up that guy and I said, hey, could we rent the gym on Sundays? So I created Backdraft Basketball Day on Sundays. So on the basketball court, I kept bugging him like, I need my SAG card, guys. I need to get in the union. Okay, right. If I make this jumper, you got to give me. Kidding. I had one line. I'm the ambulance driver at the end after the big explosion and Kurt's dying.
Yeah.
I'm driving ambulance.
Yeah. That's you up there, whenever he's saying, turn the sirens off. I don't want to hear the sirens anymore.
Yeah, something like that. Yep. Yeah. And then Rookie of the Year, we had, I did The Babe, and then I did Excessive Forces. So it was the fourth movie. With that and Babe, we had baseball tryouts. There was an acting audition and baseball tryouts.
Wow.
And so, I once thought I could play baseball until I got involved in those movies and I was playing with real baseball players. That's awful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
God, yeah. Well, playing real baseball and against real baseball players is tough. And actually, the last interview we did was with Homer Bailey. He pitches for the Twins, and he's one of only a handful of people that have more than one no-hitter and is still playing ball. It's a completely different, like what you and us do is way more similar than playing football.
Yeah. Hell, until I was involved in that, I'd never faced anybody that could throw like that. Yeah. So you got the real baseball players trying to make the actors piss their pants. So I had guys throwing curveballs in my ear. I remember this one, name escapes me at the moment, but he's like, step in the box, I want to show you something. So he throws this damn slider that's coming right at me. Of course, I jump out across the plate.
It goes,
There was a kid who could consistently throw 99 and 100 miles an hour. And catching him, because I'd never caught anybody like that. And catching him, I remember catching one on my knuckle, and I felt it up my shoulder in my neck. And then and I had a bruise on the back of my hand and the front of my hand, perfect size of the baseball, because I caught it on my index knuckle. And they're like, hold the fucking glove the right way. Which the catchers basically hold their finger, they hold the glove like this, not like a fielder's glove. And I didn't know that. I learned a very valuable lesson. But yeah, that's another different skill set. It ain't exactly like rec league softball in Burbank.
No, sir, it is not. We took we went out last year to one of the Cardinals organizations practice fields, and I took batting practice and had to go get a chiropractic adjustment afterwards. It's insane how physical, how good they are at what they do, Yep. And the thing, it's. I remember watching an interview with Charlie Sheen. They, after he did Major League, they're like, "Can you really throw a baseball 100 miles an hour?" He goes, "If I could throw a baseball 100 miles an hour, I would be playing baseball." I'm an actor that's I can act like I'm throwing a baseball. And so the people that like you and like us, that on whatever stage it may be, we get up and perform, like we're still looking at the baseball players going, fuck man, I wish I could do that. That would be super cool.
But you got the reverse of that. When Brett Favre came on Something About Mary, man, you could have put a chunk of coal in his ass and you'd have had a diamond in 5 minutes because he was that nervous.
All right, there are one people. I'm going to say that again, that I know for a fact have had a piggyback ride from Brett Favre, and you are that one people.
He'd only ever done one small commercial before he came onto the movie.
Yeah.
And this was right after that Super Bowl loss when they lost to Denver. And he was so nervous. And we quickly loosened him up, had some fun. Yeah.
Would you get a couple beers in him or something? You know.
No, well, it was just written. Warren was added into the scene. They had wanted Warren because initially, it's a long story. Initially, the studio wanted to fire me because they saw the dailies and it's too real. It's disturbing. He's too real. And like, well, that's the only way it's going to work because they were expecting somebody to clown it up, you know. And I was the only person with that audition that played it straight.
Well, I was about to say, you can't really clown up a person like that.
Nope. Because A, it ain't going to be funny, and B, the audience is going to hate you.
Yes.
So it ended up, after things got cut together and they showed it to some people, we want more of him in the movie. So they stuck me in that scene. It was just Brett enters with Warren. So we're rehearsing, and I went to Bobby Fairley, one of the brothers who's directing. I said, you know what would be really funny? If we book in that piggyback scene from the beginning of the film with Ben Stiller. If I piggyback in on, oh man, that'd be real funny. Just do it. So I go out to Brett. We're back on our first mark. And I said, hey man, did you read the script? Well, just this scene. And I said, well, there's a scene early on where I piggyback ride Ben Stiller. And so what we want to do is he goes, well, it's not on those pages I was given. I said, that's okay. So I don't have to stick to exactly what they wrote. I said, nope, not these guys. When you could see him loosen up, right? So he just picks me up. So we go in on the next rehearsal. Everybody breaks out laughing because they're not expecting it on set. So getting the laughter loosened him up further. So the producer comes over to me, Charlie Wessler, and he goes, you know, he has a back injury. If we exacerbate his back injury, get an apple box. So all right. So, you know, Favre could just pick me up like it's nothing. So we get an apple box. So I stand up so he doesn't, I just get on his back. So we do that a time or two. And I had another idea. I said, you know what'd be funny is if he touches my ear and I beat the shit out of it. So I go to Favre and I went, hey, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. So I laid it out. I said, if they touch my ear, I freak out because I beat the shit out of Matt Dillon early in the movie. So touch my ear toward the end of the scene and I'm going to tackle you and beat you up. So he's laughing because that'd be funny. So we do it. We don't tell nobody. So we're shooting at this point. Cameras are rolling. And I tackle, go over to the couch and whatnot, cut, and everybody's dying laughing. Everybody, the whole set's laughing. Well, Wessler makes over to me. He goes, what did I tell you? He has a back injury. Our liability, if he exacerbates that injury, I can't. I said, hey, man, I'm just, you know, we were faking it. He goes, well, just be careful. Well, I didn't realize Favre heard this. He heard it. So we get back to one. Don't say anything. And roll. So we go to do it again. Oh, what I said to Wessler, I said, look, instead of tackling him, what I'll do is I'll just act like I'm going to tackle him. And right when my shoulder is about to meet his midsection, we cut. So I won't tackle him, but we can still get the joke. We'll cut on the gag. So we'll still have the funny part. So we're doing it. So I go and I tackle him right when I'm going to start. Favre grabs me by the back, by my shirt, and flips. We broke the lamp in the end table, and we landed up, and I'm like at a 90-degree angle, pile driving him into the sofa. And cut. Without saying a word, Brett gets off the sofa, and he grabs the small of his back, and he limped off the set. Every producer on that movie was on me like flies on shit. They
were freaking.
And I said, dude, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Brett grabbed me. He grabbed me by the back. If he's hurt, if he's hurt. Favre leans around the corner, around the door, and points and dies laughing.
That's awesome. So basically, all right, y'all had them going. That's funny. Yeah. Golly.
Yeah. But what's great is, that's amazing. Oh my goodness.
I love it, man. And oh gosh, how funny is that?
Hey Earl, I wanted a real quick question on like a terminology. I was watching an interview you were doing couple years back, but talking about the writer for Deadwood, you talked about meter writing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what that is and why that was important for that script? Because I didn't know what that was, and I'd really like a quick explanation if it is quick.
Iambic pentameter. It's a style of poetry that Shakespeare wrote in. There's 10 beats per measure with an alternating emphasis. Da 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 da. So it's just kind of a rhythm, the way the words flow. And at first, I didn't fully recognize that. I always knew Milch's dialogue was unique. He did it on NYPD Blue also and stuff that he wrote. But with Deadwood, he had free reign, to play with the language however he saw fit. And as he said to us, when because I was talking to him about the language and certain uses, our favorite word was fuck, and our second favorite word was cocksucker. And we're talking about the etymology of that word and phrase and whatnot. But what David said he goes, we don't know how they spoke because we don't have recordings of the time. The only thing we know are written correspondence. And if anybody who was lettered at that time, they reversed in Victorian literature for the most part. So it's a very flowery prose. So that's what I based this on. So that's what it is. And that's why I think so many musicians, because I became friends with many people. I mean, I became friends with Dusty and Billy. I had their poster on my wall, as a kid. ZZ Top was one of my favorite bands. They were big into Deadwood, and I invited them out. So I became friends with a lot of musicians. So I think the musical ear, even if you didn't recognize the structure of the dialogue, you picked up that rhythm of it. And that's what it is. It's based in just the rhythm and the way that the words flow together. If you read a lot of Shakespeare out loud, just read it out loud and you'll see like, it will eventually fit together.
Well, and in that same interview, I heard how specific he was on the words. Like every word was accounted for.
He
Literally,
followed the punctuation. Yeah, and he was that meticulous about the dialogue. I once timed him. There was a scene where he and Regina Corrado had written it over the weekend. They'd worked on it, so we already had the pages. And David was doing a brush up on it before we were going to shoot the next day. And Doherty was in it. I just had like one line standing behind the bar, but I think it was, I know it was Al. I think it was him and Bullock sitting at the table talking. It's 2 pages long. David spent over 5 hours on those 2 pages. And because he lays in the floor, he would dictate. So he has a typist. He won't touch a computer. And he would lay there and watch the big screen and dictate. And he would polish and move and flip. But my favorite directive, he's watching some sentence he had written. And he says, go back in that sentence, flip fucking from the adverb to the adjective within the structure. Flip it back to the adverb. Yeah, all right, next sentence. Literally, he wanted so it and also with the way words sound and the way words fit together. Part of that breakfast with him and Steve that fascinated me endlessly were comparing writing poetry to writing songs.
Sure. It's all the same.
And Steve said once as an exercise for himself to write a haiku every day for a year. So he wrote 365 haikus, which is, 575 syllables. But just to get that specific about, the syllables of words. What Steve was talking about with him, because we're talking about Dylan, Bob Dylan compared to, whatever poet from the ages. And Steve said, but, when I got a guitar, I got a crutch because you can put it in a certain key or you can put certain chords together that evoke an emotion. But when you got poetry, you don't have anything but the written word. You only have the words on the page. Of course, David not being musical, as in, the being able to play an instrument, but David completely understood it. Now, there's a fascinating thing with that. David, it's not secret. David has Alzheimer's disease. And he has been in a home since last fall. I had lunch with him in January. and he's still writing. And when he writes, all of that goes away. He's Dave. He's completely in the moment.
Yeah.
And I read with Alzheimer's, they don't know why, but the enzyme or protein that's evident in all Alzheimer's patients does not affect the part of the brain that processes music, which is why music is so used with patients. It's such a great therapeutic tool because their brain can still absorb it. And I think that's what David accesses. You know, David is a poet. So that part of his brain is unaffected by all of the pieces that are falling away around it. So,
well, and there's been a lot of studies, you know, done with music and as a lot of people are, you know, I'm dealing with, not personally, personally, but with family, Alzheimer, dementia. My grandmother suffered from it. And, you know, coming up to where we are now, you know, it's just, there's family members dealing with it. It's the music thing is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And they don't know why.
It's still their connection to the present. It can associate them with past memories. It can bring them back from their brain. And it's also their brain is actively processing what it's receiving. Mm-hmm. David said, and I stuck it to memory. I've written it down also. But we were having lunch. There's a restaurant in the home that he lives in where the patients are served like you have a waiter, you know, you order from a menu. And he looked around some of the other patients. And during our lunch, he was 90% Dave. You know, there were very few pieces missing. But he looks around at his circumstances and he leans in and he goes, I have to tell you something, Earl. The indignities of decrepitude are boundless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But okay, but you were saying you were saying that he's still writing.
Yeah.
Do you now as a poet and just talking about, you know, you were saying, you know, Steve writing haikus, you know, going 5-7-5. The way a cadence falls in any line, a spoken line in a movie script and a screenplay, or on stage from a musician, cadence is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree? I mean, so like if you're a poet and you're still writing, that's still going to come out. You're still going to have whatever it is that you had.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I think that's, you know, with David, that keeps his mind active, but it's for whatever reason that I think music is a universal language, you know, and I think it knows no cultural boundaries. You can play in a minor key and it affects people emotionally, you know, no matter what part of the world that they're in. I think that's divine. That's my own, you know, personal belief and faith. I think it's a divine thing. And I think, you know, it's at the root of who we are. So those minds that are losing pieces of themselves, that's the last part to go.
Well, and you know, and you know, it's not something I talk about often, but you know, I have a very close family member who is suffering from early onset dementia, you know, Alzheimer's, and you know, it's one of those things where, you know, that particular person can still sing, you know, every word to a Lefty Frizzell song from 50 years ago. Yep. You know, it's just a beautiful thing what music does. Now you've cited Kiss twice, and gosh, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour.
No kidding.
Are we holding you up?
No. And I was just, boy, have we run the gamut.
Gosh, we've done it all.
Physics and death and poetry, and hell, half hour ago we're talking about jacking off on horses.
Yes. No.
And we started trying to shoot rats out of your citrus trees.
This is kind of how my mind works 24 hours a day. Shooting rats, jacking off on horses and talking about life and death and poetry. That's pretty much my day in a nutshell. Oh God, no, it's been so much fun, man. I love your storytelling. I love your how candid you are, and you can't be that way. All right, you're an actor, okay? I'm an actor. That's what we do. But you can't do that without the legitimacy of being able to be a great storyteller. And you are most definitely personally one of the best storyteller, because you did it. And I said that earlier. I said, you start telling a story about somebody and then you become that person and you have everybody absolutely enthralled. But I got to tell you, it's funny. I texted you the other night. Rebecca and I were up watching Netflix, and somebody had told me about the Highwaymen, Bonnie and Clyde story. And that you're cool whenever you're sitting on the couch with your wife watching a movie and you go, "Hey, is that Earl?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's Earl." I was like, "No shit. Huh, how about that? We've had dinner at his house." That's when you feel cool, dude.
Well, I admire the way that you built a career. I know the stories you told me, about playing with unchecked aggression and then putting your guitars in the closet, like hanging up my dream, and then just feeling like I got to sing these blues out of myself. And you said I just took a guitar out of the closet and just trying to sing away my sadness. This is what it sounded like. I didn't mean has built a career, by hand. You cut down the fucking trees, hewed the wood, and nailed them all together, and you designed the house. And it's I've used you as an example to other people, other artists, not just musicians. But it's something Steve said to me. Steve said, I honestly believe that if an artist is true to himself and he's true to that calling, if you have some modicum of talent and you don't give up, the universe will find a way for you to make a living. The universe will allow you a life if you're true.
Thank you so much. I have actually, and you can't see it. It's over there hanging on my wall. But there's an author by the name of Cyril Connolly that said, and this quote hangs in my office. It has for the last decade. It's better to write for yourself and have no public than write for the public and have no self. And I've always loved that quote because, the way we do things has been very grassroots. We don't have teddy bear soft subject matter. We go after heavy shit because that's what I like to ingest real. And, you are that. You are like the way you tell stories, the way you get into it, the way you feel. You can't do those things without actually having those feelings. And man, that's what I love so much about your work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I've had those moments of, I adapted the William Gay novel, Provinces of Night. We made it into a movie called Bloodworth. We did that in 2009. We got Kristofferson to star in it. And I got to spend a lot of time one-on-one with Kris. And I mean, those were my idols, him and Towns and Shel Silverstein. And I already knew Cowboy Jack before that, but those circle of guys and what happened amongst all of those artists feeding off of each other and spending time with him, kind of reliving it was, and the fact that Kris Kristofferson's my friend, Kris, there's another one that age is not being kind to. But I still call them pinch me moments. There are times that still happen with me of like, I'll find myself in some circumstance, usually some creative circumstance, working with people that I admire, that I, put on a pedestal, and find myself being treated as an equal by them. And you gotta admit, it was that way when Dusty and Billy came out I'm still a huge ZZ Top fan, you know, and I've seen ZZ Top now almost 40 times. You know, but the fact, because I still
is that all?
I count. I think it's 38. It's what I think it is. But I'll still hear from them on occasion, and they're still like fanboy me of like, holy shit, I got a text from Billy. You know,
yeah.
and it's funny, but just a button on this, and I guess, and you know, if we gotta go, I don't have to go.
No, hey, we can sit here and do that. I might have to take a piss break, but we can sit here and talk forever.
No, but something happened. This is with Billy. I had ordered a pair of boots for my wife from Boot Star here in LA, and I stopped to pick them up, and they had a stack of Billy's books there, Rock and Roll Gearhead. This was back in 2004. And I went, oh, they're all autographed. And Javier, the owner of the shop, goes, oh, Billy lives near here. He buys a lot of stuff from me. I said, man, what's up? It was easy. He said, well, they're kind of on a break. Billy's been doing TV for fun. I said, well, you tell him if he ever wants to come out and play cowboy on Deadwood. So lo and behold, Super Bowl Sunday, it was the Super Bowl the Rolling Stones played, because I'm a football fanatic, and I'm watching the game, and the phone rings, and it's private. I'm like, who the calling me during the Super Bowl? Private number. Hello? Yeah, must speak to Earl, please. Yeah, this is Earl. This is Billy F. Gibbons, Javier over. I'm like, holy, hey,
what's up, Billy?
Toward the end, he said, I'd love to. Would it be all right if I invite my bass player? I like that show, but Dusty quotes it like it's the Bible. I said, Dusty, hell yeah, bring Frank too. He went, so we're trying to figure out schedules. I was on set, and Noki Edwards used to live out there, Noki of the Ventures, the guy that essentially created surf guitar, him and Dick Dale. He knew the owners of the ranch where we shot. So when he was in LA, he would park his Winnebago out there and stay. Well, he was there, and I met him. He walks outside my trailer. I went, oh yeah, Billy, there's another guitar hero out here. Did you ever listen to Noki Edwards? Or did you ever listen to the Ventures? Noki Edwards? I said, yeah. You know Noki? Well, he's standing about 10 feet right outside my trailer right now. Yeah. So they come out a week or so later, and I said, did you want to meet Noki? Yeah. So I go out and get him. Noki knew ZZ Top, but he wasn't he was in his, mid-late 70s at that point. So he kind of knew who they were, but so we come down. Well, Billy, who is the coolest dude I know, was like fanboy, like you were with Scott that night.
Yeah.
Billy,
hey man, we're all fans.
He said, outside of the primary blues players, I gotta say, Walk Don't Run had the biggest impact on my playing. So he's asking him all about recording Walk Don't Run. And he's asking him about what kind of microphone they mic the snare with. Because he's talking about the snare pop when it goes into that bridge. And just kind of technical jargon, Well,
That's
Noki,
awesome.
And then Noki's telling him. And at one point, Billy strokes his beard and he goes, got to be something to be at the point that you are in your life. Realize what an impact that your work has had. Well, I'm sitting 5 feet away and I'm thinking, dude, you're that guy.
You're that guy.
I had your poster. I wanted a Les Paul because of Pearly Gates.
Yeah.
You're that dude.
Yeah.
And so all this happened. It was a month or so later. We went out to dinner and we were going back over. And I told him, I said, you were sitting there fanboying. It was like you were 12 years old again, fanboying about Noki. And you said, and I said, you were that dude to me, Billy.
Yeah.
Billy leans in. He goes, let me tell you something, Earl. It's like everything in life. It's all just a matter of perspective. So,
well, okay. And those, like you so eloquently put, those pinch me moments.
Yeah.
I had one of those, like you said, with Scott in your home. Because I can remember, and we're going to get back to Kristofferson here in a minute, because I got a cool one about that. Kristofferson to Scotty and what? I used to go to Guitar Center and look at, like, back in the early 2000s, Scott had the Jackson JJ series. That was his signature model. And I used to go and I used to look at them. I couldn't afford one, but I loved Anthrax and I loved Scott's playing. And I used to go look at these fucking guitars, that had Scott's name on the headstock. And it's like,
but you got one now.
Now I got one signed. And I said, you know what, dude? It only took me 20 years, but I got one signed now. And I got one of his King V's. So that's a pinch me moment. Kristofferson, you were talking about being able to hang out with him. We played with Kris 3 years ago, Josh. Was that?
Yeah,
I think it was 17. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
The lineup was us and Kristofferson and Ward Davis. That was the show. And Ward and I we were playing, that was Verizon.
Yeah, you're right. Verizon Wireless
just outside of Dallas.
Prairie.
Yeah, Verizon Wireless Center in Grand Prairie. And I remember how it was kind of a homecoming show for us. We hadn't played around the Dallas-Fort Worth area in quite some time. And we wanted it to be big. And at the time, Ward and I had just done Devil. Ward's album, 15 Years in a 10-Year Town, was taken off and starting to do really well for him. So we were touring a lot together. And we were like, how do we make this, it sits 5,000, 6,000 people. I don't know. It's like, how do we make this just a badass homecoming? Let's call Kris Kristofferson. Because I was like, okay. I mean, like, if we're at that level now to where I can start making those kind of phone calls, let's just see what happens. So Kris says yes. And obviously Ward and I were there way early, way beforehand, and we're standing out on the loading dock, just smoking cigarettes, waiting on Kris to get there. That's what we did for like 4 hours. We were sitting there drinking beer and sitting on the steps, waiting on Kris to get there. So Kris finally gets there. I guess we were inside for some reason. And I get this knock on my dressing room door, and me and Ward are in there, probably smoking weed and drinking beer. And Kris is here. So, oh, cool. Kris is here. Ward and I look at each other like, what do we do? We go say hi. Okay, yeah. All right, let's go say hi. Let's be real cool, though. We got to be super cool, man. Got to be cool. He's in his dressing room. So Ward and I, we're grown men. At this time, Ward's got a year on me. At this time, I'm 37. Ward's
I
38.
think you just turned 37.
Yeah. So we walk all the way up to Kris's door. 2 grown men. And we chicken out and we walk away. We didn't even knock. We didn't even knock on his damn door. And we go back out and smoke a cigarette and think about what we're doing. It's like, okay, all right, we got to have a plan here, okay? All right, let's get our shit together, Ward, and get a fucking plan together. All right, what are we going to do? Tell you what, let's just go knock on his door and see what happens. Okay, that's a great plan. So we go all the way back to his door. We knock on the door and we hear, yeah. Hear lumbering around. The door opens. Kris is standing there with his guitar on. He's in there by himself. Lisa's not in there. And me and Ward are standing at his door like we're fucking trick-or-treating or something. We're, looking at Kris Kristofferson. And I said, Mr. Kristofferson, my name's Cody. This is Ward, and we're playing with you tonight. And we just wanted to tell you how much this means to us, and just thank you. We're trying not to waste your time. Just wanted to welcome you and tell you thank you so much, for being here. And if you need anything, just please let us know. I need to change his fucking guitar string. I can't see it. So Ward goes, do you want us to help you change it? And he said, Well, yeah, if you can see it. So we walk into his dressing room. Kris has got his guitar on. He's holding it like this, face end up, sound hole end up. And Ward gets around and pulls the peg out. And I'm around on the other side. We run a string. I wind it up. There you go. And he's sitting there. We're looking at each other like, in this moment, we're helping Kristofferson change a fucking guitar string, and how cool that was, So it's those little, like you said, those little pinch me moments of.
Well, when I first met him, we were cast on a Western together. This was about 2 years before we did Bloodworth. It was a Western that Ray Wiley Hubbard had written called The Last Rites of Ransom Pride.
And what a wonderful, awesome human being he is.
Oh, Ray?
He is the sweetest man ever.
Love Ray and Judy.
I'll be right back.
But with Kris, we'd been filming, and that it was around the time we were about to break for lunch. And I told him, I said, and he was polite. We'd met. Hey, I'm Kris, Earl. I'm a fan. Well, thank you. Toward lunch, I said, me and you, we have a mutual friend. Who's that? I said, Cowboy Jack. Jack Clement. You know Jack? Yeah, I know Jack. Known him for a few years. I said, hell, I don't go to Nashville that I don't go visit Cowboy Arms. He said, oh, Jack gave me my first job. I said, oh, I know. He's told me the whole story. I know. And I said, Jack has been sick recently. What? I said, yes, he had prostate cancer, but he's okay. I said, I haven't talked to him since he finished treatments, but I've heard the treatments were successful and he's doing fine. He goes, oh my God, do you have his number? I said, yeah. So I gave him Jack's number. So we're at lunch and he comes by my trailer and he sticks his head in the door and he goes, I have a message for you. I said, yeah, what? He goes, I just got off the phone with Jack. He said, tell Earl it was colon cancer, not prostate cancer. God damn it. He missed it by about
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
So that broke the ice. And so, we'd chat during that movie, but it was on Bloodworth a couple of years later because our apartments were next to each other, that we would sit around and literally sit in my apartment, hand a guitar back and forth. Here's another funny one on him. I've told this one. I told it at that tribute to him on the Outlaw Cruise. We were going out to dinner, and the kid that played his grandson, Reese Thompson, he was enamored with Kris. And the kid was sitting there. We're in my apartment. We're smoking a joint before we're going to go eat. The kid holding the jade. He says, I spent the day watching the Discovery Channel and how that the forest is essentially the lungs of the earth. And deforestation is. Kris leans over, standing. He takes the joint away from him and he goes, that young man has had enough.
That's it.
That's the beginning. Kris takes a big hit. He looks at the joint and he goes, I spent my day reading Blake. The pathway of excess leads to the palace of wisdom. Ooh, fuck me. I've had enough. So, watching him bust this 21-year-old's balls about pontificating and then catching himself doing the same. It was like watching Steve Earle catch himself about acting.
That's the second time. That's the second story of just like that. Oh my goodness!
Oh, that's awesome.
I think we need to do a second episode with.
God,
Earl.
we're gonna have to have Earl back on. Yeah, this has been too much fun.
Like we haven't talked about Chicago Bears. We haven't talked about your hatred of what's coming out of Nashville because I know you just like There's still a lot of stuff.
There's so much to talk about, and this is the longest one we've done, and we still haven't talked about like so many things.
Well, you got my number.
Okay.
I do. I have your number.
Not exactly like my schedule is so busy these days.
Well, shit. No, neither is ours, dude. I tell you, honestly, man, like it's 4:20 right now, and this show's called A Couple In. I've had like 8 beers and like a whole bunch of weed already. Like we're just sitting here bullshitting. It's so much fun.
It's the end of the week.
It's the end of the week.
It beats standing out in my backyard shaking my fist at a goddamn rat.
At a rat. Yeah. Okay, here's what you do, man. We're going to solve. I've been thinking about it while we've been chatting. What you need to do is get real good with a pellet gun.
A pellet gun is a possibility. I'm going to try. There's another rat trap idea that I'm going to try. I'm also going to redo the sticky trap that I used was old. So, I'm not going to stick my finger in there and test it, but it is old.
Okay, Earl, first of all, you got to get away from your Home Depot. You got to go a little bit more deeper on the web and get stuff that's a little more primal, medieval. I mean, you just got to kill these fuckers.
Dude, you're talking to the fucking mole fucking murderer.
I got to find my own Carl Spackler. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
I find Carl Spackler within myself.
Within yourself, yes.
Who knows that reference? Who got the reference? Who younger than me? That's Bill Murray from
Caddyshack.
From Caddyshack. Yeah, you got to just get a fucking fire hose and sling it out like a big dong and just put it in the hole and turn it on. You're good.
Yeah, you got to get more medieval on them, man. You can't those pansy sticky pads. That ain't going to work.
To hold him down, pop his fucking eyeball out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Make him scream real loud. Oh, God. This has been too much fun. Earl, man, hey, and I'll tell you what, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I have laughed my ass off. I love you as a human. I love you as a storyteller. You are one of my favorite people to hang around and listen to. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you. And I have very few friends that I can sit and fanboy over Rain in Blood and Redheaded Stranger at the same time.
Two of my favorite records ever.
Me too.
Absolutely. No, we have so much in common as far as music goes, and I've made friends because of you and how you bring people together. We are talking to the absolutely brilliant W. Earl Brown. You've been listening to A Couple In. I'm Cody Jinks. We have Josh Thompson. We have Bobby Keith Kilgore. Thank you, gentlemen. And once again, thank you, Earl. God bless you. Say hi to your lovely wife, Carrie, for us.
Will do.
Just thank you so much, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.